The door clicked open at exactly 11:47 p.m. Kimberly's shirt was halfway over her head when she heard it. Paint streaked across her collarbone, dust from the conservatory clinging to her skin. She thought the master suite was empty, abandoned for the night like every other corner of this massive estate. She was wrong. Kong Min stood frozen in the doorway. His hand still gripped the handle. For 3 full seconds, the most dangerous man in London's underworld didn't move, didn't breathe. A man who'd negotiated million-dollar arms deals without flinching now looked like someone had just rewired his entire nervous system. Because Kimberly wasn't just beautiful in that moment. She was vulnerable, real. Everything his world of calculated moves and cold transactions had stripped away from him years ago. And something inside him, something he'd spent his entire adult life burying, cracked wide open. Before we continue, welcome to Story Sphere, where every story pulls you into a world you won't want to leave. If you love emotional, heartwarming romance stories like this one, do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and subscribe, so you never miss another story that'll make you feel something real. Now, let's get back into the story. 3 weeks earlier, Kimberly never imagined she'd end up here. The Kensington estate sprawled across 12 acres of London's most exclusive real estate. Behind its iron gates and security cameras lived a man most people only whispered about. Kong Min, head of the Seoul London Triad Syndicate. A name that made billionaires nervous and made criminals disappear. Kimberly needed the work. After her family's company collapsed under the weight of fraud charges. Charges that had nothing to do with her, but everything to do with her father's business partner. She'd taken any job that came her way. Garden restoration, property maintenance, anything that kept her invisible. Her supervisor had been explicit. Stay in the conservatory. Don't wander. Don't ask questions. And for God's sake, don't interact with Mr. Kong. Perfect. Kimberly had no interest in men who wore danger like cologne. The conservatory was her sanctuary anyway. Overgrown with decades of neglect, it housed a collection of paintings that needed careful restoration. One piece in particular caught her attention. A stunning oil painting of a winter landscape, damaged by water and time, but still breathtaking underneath the decay. She'd been working on it for 2 weeks when she first saw him. Kong Min didn't announce himself. One moment Kimberly was alone with her brushes and solvents. The next she felt a presence behind her. Heavy, watchful. You're using the wrong technique. His voice cut through the quiet like a blade, low, precise, with the faintest trace of a Seoul accent wrapped around perfect English. Kimberly's hand didn't shake. Years of art school had taught her that much. The painting's been exposed to moisture damage. Traditional techniques would destroy what's left of the original oils. Then why are you here? Not aggressive. Just curious. She turned slowly. Kong Min stood 3 feet away, hands in the pockets of a suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. His face was angular, carved from something harder than marble. Dark eyes that looked like they could calculate your net worth and your deepest secret in the same glance. But there was something else there too. Something that flickered when he looked at the painting. At her hands. At the careful way she'd been working. I'm here because someone thought this was worth saving, she said. And I happen to agree. The corner of his mouth almost moved. Almost. He left without another word. But he came back the next day. And the day after that. The conversation started small. He'd ask about her process. She'd explain the chemistry of paint restoration, the way you had to work with the damage instead of against it, how you couldn't force something back to its original form. You had to let it reveal itself. Kong Min listened the way most people didn't, with his entire attention focused on her words, like she was briefing him on something critical. You talk about paintings like they're alive, he said one afternoon. They are. Kimberly dabbed at a corner of the canvas. Or they were. Someone poured their soul into this. The least I can do is try to save what they left behind. Something shifted in his expression. Most people would say it's just an object. Replaceable. Most people haven't lost everything. The words slipped out before she could stop them. His eyes sharpened. Not with judgment. With recognition. Your father's company, he said quietly. The fraud case. You were never charged. Ice flooded her veins. Of course he knew. Men like Kong Min knew everything. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. 2 words. But the way he said them made her chest tighten. Like he wasn't just acknowledging facts, he was acknowledging her. The silence stretched between them, heavy with something neither of them could name yet. The painting, Kang Min said finally. It belonged to my mother. She bought it at an auction in Seoul 30 years ago. Said it reminded her of a place where power didn't matter. Just beauty. Kimberly's hands stilled. Where is she now? Dead. 12 years. No emotion in his voice. But his jaw tightened. Cancer. I'm sorry. Don't be. She taught me everything I needed to survive. He looked at the painting again. She never taught me how to live. The vulnerability in that admission hit Kimberly like a physical thing. This man, this terrifying, untouchable man, had just handed her a piece of himself, and she didn't know what to do with it. After that conversation, everything changed. Kang Min started appearing at odd hours. Sometimes in the middle of the day when most crime lords should be doing crime lord things. Sometimes late at night when Kimberly worked past her scheduled hours, too absorbed in the restoration to notice the time. He'd sit in one of the conservatory chairs and just watch her work. It should have been creepy. It should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Tell me about your family, he said one evening. Kimberly didn't look up from the painting. My mom died when I was 16. Cancer like yours. My dad tried to keep the company going, but he trusted the wrong person. Everything fell apart 3 years ago. And you ended up here. Better than some alternatives. She rinsed her brush. At least I'm doing something I love. You don't hate me? The question came out carefully. For what I am. Now she did look at him. Really look at him. Should I? Most people would. I'm not most people. She set down her brush. And you're not most crime lords. His expression flickered with something she couldn't quite read. How would you know? Because most crime lords don't spend their evenings watching someone restore their dead mother's painting. They don't ask questions about art techniques. And they definitely don't look at a damaged canvas like it might hold the answer to something they've been searching for their entire lives. The words hung in the air between them. Kang Min stood slowly. For a terrifying moment, Kimberly thought she'd gone too far. Seen too much. Said something that would make him remember exactly who he was and who she wasn't. Instead, he crossed the space between them in 3 strides. You see too much, he said quietly. His voice had dropped to something almost dangerous. Almost tender. Maybe you want someone to see you. His hand came up, slowly, giving her every chance to step back, and brushed a streak of paint from her cheek. The touch lasted half a second. It burned for much longer. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. I'm not a good man, Kimberly. I didn't ask you to be. Something ignited in his eyes then. Something that looked like hunger and fear and longing all wrapped into one devastating expression. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. For a moment she wanted him to. But Kang Min stepped back. Finish the painting, he said roughly. I'm hosting a gathering here in 2 weeks. I want it displayed. Then he was gone, leaving Kimberly standing alone in the conservatory with paint on her hands and her heart hammering against her ribs. The next 10 days blurred together in a haze of restoration work and stolen conversations. Kang Min came to the conservatory every night. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in silence while she worked and he watched. The tension between them built like a physical presence in the room. Thick, electric, undeniable. She learned things about him. Small details that didn't match the reputation. He hated coffee but drank it anyway. He'd learned to play piano as a child but never touched one anymore. His favorite color was the particular shade of blue right before dawn. He'd been running the syndicate since he was 24. After his father was killed in a territorial dispute. Did you love him? She asked one night. Your father. Kang Min's expression went distant. I respected him. Love was complicated in our family. It's complicated in most families. Not like mine. He leaned back in his chair. My father taught me that emotion is weakness. That caring about anything makes you vulnerable. He ran the syndicate with pure logic. Pure strategy. And you? I followed his example. Until, he stopped himself. Until what? His eyes found hers across the room. Until a woman covered in paint made me remember I used to be human. The air left Kimberly's lungs. Kang Min. I know. He stood abruptly. I know this can't happen. I know what I am. What my life is. I know that anyone close to me becomes a target. I know all of it, Kimberly. Then why are you here? Because for the first time in 12 years, I don't want to be anywhere else. The confession hung between them like a living thing. Kimberly set down her brush with shaking hands. I should go. Stay. One word. But the way he said it, rough, almost broken, made her freeze. Please. She'd never heard him say please before. 5 more minutes, he said quietly. Then I'll let you go. But 5 minutes became 20. Became an hour. Became them sitting on opposite sides of the conservatory, talking about everything and nothing, while the distance between them felt like both a chasm and the thinnest possible thread. The night it happened, Kimberly had been working late finishing details on the restoration. The painting was nearly complete. Just a few final touches, some protective coating, and it would be ready for Kong Min's gathering. She'd lost track of time, too focused on getting the shadows right in one corner. The paint on her clothes had gotten worse. Smudges on her shirt, streaks on her jeans. She looked like she'd been in a fight with a canvas and lost. The estate was quiet. Everyone had left hours ago. Even the security team kept to the perimeter at this time of night. Kimberly made a decision. The master suite was on the 3rd floor. She'd seen it while delivering supplies earlier that week. Kong Min had been in Seoul for a syndicate meeting. The bathroom attached to it was massive, with a shower that probably cost more than her car. She'd just wash up quickly, change into the spare shirt in her bag, be gone before anyone noticed. Except she'd underestimated how exhausted she was. The hot water felt incredible against her sore muscles. She took longer than planned. When she finally turned off the shower and stepped out, wrapping herself in a towel, she realized she'd left her bag in the main bedroom. No problem. She'd just grab it quickly. Kimberly opened the bathroom door and walked into the suite. Her shirt was draped over a chair. She reached for it, pulled off the towel, and was halfway into the fresh shirt when she heard it. Click. The door handle turned. Time crystallized into something thick and slow. Her shirt was bunched around her shoulders. Her skin still damp. Paint-stained clothes in a pile on the floor. The towel at her feet. And Kong Min stood in the doorway. He'd come home early from Seoul. The meeting had gone faster than expected. He'd walked through his own house, thinking about her, about how she'd looked the last time he saw her, focused and determined and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or expensive clothes. He'd reached for the door handle automatically. His suite, his private space. Safe. Then he opened it. Kimberly stood in the middle of his bedroom, frozen in the act of pulling a shirt over her head. Her dark skin glowed in the low light. Drops of water still clung to her shoulders. Her eyes went wide with shock. For 3 full seconds, Kong Min forgot how to function. He'd seen beautiful women before. Had them in his bed, even. But this was different. This was Kimberly, the woman who'd spent 2 weeks carefully restoring his mother's painting, who talked about art like it was alive, who'd looked at him and seen a person instead of a monster. And she was here, in his space, vulnerable and real and so breathtakingly beautiful that something in his chest physically hurt. The careful control he'd built over 12 years shattered. "I'm sorry," Kimberly breathed, yanking the shirt down. Her face burned with embarrassment. "I was working late and I had paint everywhere and I didn't know you'd be back tonight." "Stop talking." His voice came out rougher than he intended. She stopped. Kong Min stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. His hand was still on the handle. If he let go, he didn't know what he'd do. Didn't trust himself. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I know. I'll go. I don't want you to go." The confession hung in the air between them. Kimberly's breath caught. "Kong Min, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." The words tore out of him like they'd been locked behind a dam. Every meeting, every negotiation, every moment I'm supposed to be focused on anything else. You're there, in my head, making me feel things I swore I'd never feel again. "You can't," her voice shook. "We can't." "I know." He finally released the door handle. Took 1 step toward her. Just one. "I know everything this means. Everything it could destroy. I know that my world is dangerous and that anyone close to me becomes a liability. I know that I should send you away right now and never see you again. Another step. But I'm tired, Kimberly. I'm tired of being the man everyone expects. I'm tired of calculating every move. I'm tired of feeling nothing." One more step brought him within arm's reach. "And when I look at you, I feel everything." Kimberly's back hit the wall. She hadn't realized she'd been retreating. "This is crazy. Probably. Your life, your world, will destroy you. I know." His hand came up, braced against the wall beside her head. Not touching her. Not yet. Giving her space. giving her choice. So tell me to leave. Tell me you don't feel this too. Lie to me if you have to. Because if you don't, I'm going to kiss you. And once I start, I don't think I'll be able to stop. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Those dark eyes searched his face, looking for the lie, for the trap, for any reason to run. She didn't find one. I feel it too, she whispered. Something snapped in Kong Min's expression. His mouth crashed into hers like a man drowning, and she was air. Desperate. Consuming. 12 years of buried emotion pouring into a single kiss. Kimberly gasped against his lips. Her hands came up, fisting in his expensive shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. The kiss deepened, turned molten. He tasted like whiskey and danger and something darker she couldn't name, but couldn't resist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kong Min pressed his forehead to hers. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. They'll come for you. When people find out. The syndicate. My enemies. They'll use you against me. Let them try. A rough sound escaped his throat. Half laugh, half groan. You don't know what you're saying. Maybe not. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But I know I'm tired of being afraid. I know I'm tired of playing it safe. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel alive for the first time since my world fell apart. His thumb traced her jaw. You're going to ruin me. Good. He kissed her again. Slower this time. Deeper. Like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. The feel of her. Like he knew this moment couldn't last, but refused to let it go yet. When they finally separated, Kong Min stepped back. Put physical distance between them, even though every line of his body screamed that he didn't want to. The gathering is in 4 days, he said, his voice still rough. There'll be over 100 people here. Syndicate members. Business partners. People who would destroy you without hesitation if they saw you as a weakness. Then they won't see me as a weakness. Kimberly, I'm finishing your painting. I'll be at that gathering. And if anyone asks, I'm the restoration specialist you hired. Nothing more. Something dark flickered in his expression. You're so much more than that. To you, maybe. But they don't need to know that yet. The word, yet, hung between them like a promise. The next 4 days passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful distance. In public, around staff, around the security team, they were professional, polite. Kimberly finished the restoration work. Kong Min prepared for his gathering. They barely looked at each other. In private, everything burned. Late-night conversations in the conservatory that ended with his mouth on hers. Stolen kisses in empty hallways. The way he'd find excuses to touch her. A hand at the small of her back, fingers brushing hers when he handed her coffee. The weight of his gaze following her across every room. This is dangerous, she whispered one night, pressed against the wall of his study while his hands mapped the curve of her waist. Everything about me is dangerous. His lips found the pulse point below her ear. You should run. Too late for that. His dark laugh vibrated against her skin. Yeah, for both of us. But beneath the heat, tension coiled tighter each day. Because Kong Min knew what was coming. The gathering wasn't just a social event. It was a power play. A demonstration. The Seoul London Triad Syndicate meeting its European counterparts to negotiate new territories, new arrangements. Blood would be in the water. Sharks circling. And if anyone sensed weakness, if anyone discovered that the untouchable Kong Min had developed feelings for someone, they'd tear her apart just to watch him bleed. Maybe I shouldn't be there, Kimberly said the night before the event. You have to be. His jaw tightened. If you disappear now, right after completing a project for me, people will ask questions. Will assume I'm hiding something. Aren't you? His eyes met hers. Not hiding. Protecting. The estate transformed overnight. White marble gleamed under crystal lighting. Tables laden with food that cost more than Kimberly earned in 6 months. Men in custom suits and women in designer gowns circulating through rooms that suddenly felt more like a lion's den than a home. Kimberly wore a simple black dress. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention. Her role tonight was clear. The restoration specialist brought in to unveil the completed painting. Present it, answer a few polite questions, then fade into the background. Except nothing went according to plan. The painting stood on an easel in the main gallery, covered with black silk. Kong Min positioned himself nearby, every inch the cold syndicate boss. His expression gave away nothing. But Kimberly had learned to read the tiny tells. The slight tension in his jaw, the way his fingers tapped once against his thigh when someone approached. He was on edge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice cutting through the polite conversation. "3 weeks ago, I hired a specialist to restore a painting that meant a great deal to my late mother. Tonight, I'd like to unveil the completed work." All eyes turned to the covered canvas. Kimberly's heart hammered. This was supposed to be simple, proud of something she'd worked hard to save. A professional triumph. Instead, she felt exposed. Vulnerable. Like standing here in front of these dangerous people was painting a target on her back. Kong Min's eyes found hers across the room. One brief moment of connection. Then his expression went cold again. He pulled the silk away. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The painting was stunning. The winter landscape restored to its original glory, colors vibrant, every detail sharp and clear. Her weeks of careful work had paid off. Applause scattered through the room. Polite. Appreciative. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Quite beautiful. Though I must say, Mr. Kong, you seem to have developed quite an eye for restoration projects." The speaker was a woman in her 50s, dripping in diamonds, with eyes like a snake. Madam Chun, Kong Min had mentioned her. Head of the Hong Kong faction, known for her ruthlessness and political maneuvering. "I hire the best," Kong Min said smoothly. "Indeed. And this specialist?" Madam Chen's gaze slid to Kimberly. "She's been working here for weeks, I understand. Living on the estate." Ice flooded Kimberly's veins. "The restoration required consistent attention," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Mr. Kong graciously provided accommodations to facilitate the work." "How generous of him." Madam Chen's smile didn't reach her eyes. "He's not typically known for his generosity. The painting belonged to my mother." Kong Min's voice had gone dangerously quiet. That warranted exceptional care. "Of course." But the way Madam Chen looked between them suggested she'd seen something. Sensed something. Though one wonders what other projects might benefit from such dedicated attention. The threat hung in the air like smoke. The evening deteriorated from there. Whispers started circulating. Glances thrown in Kimberly's direction. Men clustered in corners, their voices low and urgent. Something was happening. Something bad. Kimberly tried to follow instructions. Fade into the background, stay invisible. But invisibility was impossible when you could feel dozens of eyes tracking your every movement. At 10:47 p.m., a man approached Kong Min, tall, Western, with the kind of face that looked expensive and cruel in equal measure. Victor Ashworth. British old money with ties to Eastern European trafficking networks. Kong Min, a word? His accent was clipped proper, hiding venom underneath. They stepped aside. Kimberly was too far away to hear. But she saw Ashworth pull out his phone, show Kong Min something on the screen. Saw the way Kong Min's entire body went rigid. Saw the fury that flashed across his face before his mask slammed back into place. When Ashworth walked away, Kong Min's eyes found Kimberly across the room. The look on his face made her blood freeze. He gestured subtly, a slight tilt of his head toward the hallway. She followed at a discreet distance, pulse hammering. The moment they were alone, Kong Min rounded on her. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now." "About what?" "Your last job. Before you came here. There was a wealthy family, the Harringtons. You worked on their estate for 3 months. What happened?" Kimberly's stomach dropped. "How do you answer the question?" "Nothing happened. I completed my work and left." "That's not what the photos suggest." He pulled out his own phone, pulled up an image, and showed it to her. The photo was damning. Kimberly in an evening gown, standing close to James Harrington, the family's eldest son. His hand on her waist. Both of them laughing. It looked intimate. It looked like proof. "That was a charity gala," she breathed. "The Harringtons invited their entire staff as a thank you. James was drunk and wouldn't leave me alone. I was trying to be polite. There are 6 more photos like this. They're out of context. I know that." His voice was harsh. "But everyone out there doesn't. Someone leaked these tonight. Someone who wants to paint you as a social climber who seduces wealthy men for access and money." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "You think I?" "No." He stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. "I don't think that. I know you, Kimberly. But it doesn't matter what I know. What matters is what they believe. And right now, they believe you're a manipulator who's gotten close to me for the same reasons. That's insane. This is my world." His grip tightened slightly. "Insane is the baseline. And someone just weaponized your past to undermine me. To make me look weak. Like I'm being played by a beautiful woman. Tears burned in Kimberly's eyes. So what do we do? The anguish in his expression nearly broke her. I have to cut you loose, he said roughly. Publicly. Make it clear you mean nothing to me. That this was just a professional arrangement and nothing more. No. If I don't, they'll destroy you. Victor Ashworth already made it clear. If I keep you around, he'll ensure everyone in London knows about your history of targeting wealthy men. He'll ruin your reputation so thoroughly you'll never work again. He'll make your life hell just to prove he can. Let him try. You don't understand. Kong Min's forehead pressed against hers. These people don't just ruin reputations. They make people disappear. And if they think you're a weakness they can exploit, they won't hesitate. So that's it. Tears spilled over. You just give up? I'm protecting you. By pushing me away? Yes. The word came out broken. Because keeping you close will get you killed. The breakup was brutal and public. Kong Min called everyone back to the gallery. His face was carved from ice. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. It has come to my attention that Miss Kimberly's presence here has caused certain misconceptions. Let me be clear. She was hired to restore a painting. Nothing more. That work is now complete. Her services are no longer needed. Kimberly stood 3 feet away, wrapped in the black coat someone had handed her. Tears streaked her face. She didn't bother hiding them. Let them see. Let them think she was heartbroken and humiliated. She was. But not for the reasons they thought. Effective immediately, Kong Min continued, his eyes deliberately not looking at her. Miss Kimberly is dismissed. Payment for her work has been transferred to her account. She is no longer associated with this estate or with me in any capacity. The dismissal was absolute. Final. Madame Chen's smile was victorious. Victor Ashworth looked satisfied. Others in the room nodded approvingly. The cold boss they knew and expected, cutting loose a liability without hesitation. Only Kimberly saw the truth. The way Kong Min's hands were buried in his pockets, fists clenched so tight his knuckles had to be white. The muscle jumping in his jaw. The way he looked everywhere except at her, because looking would break him. He was tearing himself apart. But he was doing it anyway. For her. Security escorted Kimberly out. She didn't fight. Didn't protest. Just let them guide her through the estate she'd come to know intimately. Past the conservatory where she'd spent hours restoring his mother's painting. Out the front doors into the cold London night. A car waited. Not Kong Min's driver. Someone neutral. Professional. Your belongings will be delivered tomorrow, the security guard said. Not unkindly. I'm sorry, miss. The car pulled away. Kimberly watched the estate disappear through the rear window. Somewhere inside, Kong Min was going back to his gathering, playing the role of the untouchable crime boss. And she was leaving. Alone. Heartbroken. Believing he'd chosen his reputation over her. But in the pocket of her coat, her phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. Forgive me. I'll fix this. Trust me. K. Kong Min kept his mask in place for exactly 20 more minutes. Then he excused himself, went to his private office, and started making calls. The photos were fabricated. Not fake. The events had happened. But the context, the story, the timing of their release, all orchestrated. Someone had been watching Kimberly long before she came to work for him. Someone who knew about the Harrington family. About James Harrington's reputation for getting handsy with staff members. Someone who'd waited for the perfect moment to weaponize her past. It took 4 calls to find the source. Victor Ashworth had been too obvious. Too eager to present the evidence. Which meant someone else was pulling strings. The 5th call got him answers. James Harrington, his investigators said. He was obsessed with Miss Kimberly during her time at his family's estate. She rejected him repeatedly. When she left, he felt humiliated. He's been tracking her movements ever since. When he heard she was working for you, he saw an opportunity. To do what? Ruin her. He reached out to Ashworth, fed him the photos, spun the narrative. Made a deal. Helped destroy Kimberly's reputation. And Harrington would facilitate some European connections Ashworth wanted. Rage, cold and absolute, flooded Kong Min's system. Find Harrington. Now. Sir, it's almost midnight. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning. Find him. Get me everything. His location, his schedule, every skeleton in his closet. I want ammunition. And if he refuses to cooperate? Kong Min's smile was deadly. He won't refuse. The investigator hesitated. What are you going to do? Something I should have done the moment those photos surfaced. He stood, already reaching for his coat. I'm going to show everyone what happens when someone tries to destroy the woman I love. The admission hung in the air. First time he'd said it out loud. First time he'd let himself think it clearly. He loved her, and he'd sent her away thinking he didn't. By 2 a.m., Kong Min had James Harrington's full history spread across his desk. Harassment complaints. Payoffs to make accusations disappear. A pattern of behavior toward women who worked for his family. And critically, evidence of financial crimes that would interest several law enforcement agencies. At 3 a.m., he had a meeting with Victor Ashworth. You used fabricated evidence to undermine me, Kong Min said quietly. Dangerously. Ashworth paled. I was given information. By a spoiled, vindictive man with a history of targeting women. You didn't verify. Didn't question. Just used it as ammunition because you thought you could weaken my position. Kong Min, you made a mistake. He leaned forward. Miss Kimberly was innocent. Is innocent. And you helped destroy her reputation based on lies. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to help me fix this. You're going to publicly acknowledge that the photos were taken out of context. That the narrative was false. That you were misled. I can't. You can. And you will. Because if you don't, every European connection you have will disappear. Every deal you're working on will collapse. I'll make sure of it. Ashworth's face was ashen. You're threatening me over a woman? I'm promising you. Kong Min's voice was ice. She is not a weakness. She is a line in the sand. And you crossed it. At 4 a.m., while London slept, Kong Min got in his car and drove. Rain had started falling. The kind of storm that shut the city down, turned streets into rivers. His driver protested. Kong Min ignored him. Drove himself. Because he needed to get to her. Needed to fix this before she spent another hour thinking he'd abandoned her. He had her address. A small flat in East London. Modest. Safe. Nowhere near luxurious enough for the woman who'd restored his mother's painting. Who'd made him feel human again. Kimberly heard the knocking at 4:47 a.m. She'd been awake anyway. Staring at the ceiling. Replaying every moment of the evening. The humiliation. The dismissal. The way Kong Min had looked through her like she was nothing. But also remembering the text. Trust me. The knocking came again. Harder. She opened the door. Kong Min stood soaking wet. Hair plastered to his forehead. Suit ruined. Eyes wild with something she'd never seen before. I found him, he said. Harrington. The photos. Everything. It was all orchestrated. He was obsessed with you, and when you rejected him, he decided to destroy you. Kimberly's hand gripped the door frame. I know who James Harrington is. I have proof. Evidence that he harassed multiple women. That the photos were deliberately misrepresented. Victor Ashworth is already preparing a statement retracting the accusations. He stepped closer. By morning, everyone will know the truth. Kong Min. I sent you away. His voice cracked. I stood there and dismissed you like you meant nothing. I let them think I didn't care. And I have never hated myself more than I did watching you walk out of that house. Rain dripped from his hair. He looked destroyed. Desperate. I thought I was protecting you, he continued. Thought keeping distance would keep you safe. But I was wrong. Because sending you away didn't protect you. It just hurt you. And keeping you at arm's length doesn't make you less of a target. It just makes you face them alone. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done hiding. Done pretending. Done letting other people dictate how I live my life. He closed the distance between them. I'm the head of a criminal syndicate. I have enemies. I have blood on my hands. I am not a good man, Kimberly. But I love you. And I'm tired of apologizing for it. Her breath caught. I love you, he repeated, like the words were oxygen. I love how you see beauty in damaged things. How you fight for what matters. How you looked at me, really looked at me, and didn't see a monster. You saw a person. And for the first time in 12 years, I felt like a person. Tears streamed down her face. You're insane. Probably. But I'm also done playing by their rules. His hands framed her face. I don't care what the syndicate thinks. I don't care what alliances this disrupts. I don't care about any of it if it means losing you. They'll come after me. Let them. His expression went fierce. I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. I will dismantle every threat. I will turn my entire operation into a fortress around you if that's what it takes. Because you are not a weakness, Kimberly. You're the only thing that makes me strong. She kissed him. Hard. Desperate. tasting rain and whiskey and 12 years of buried emotion. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything. Your reputation will survive. Or it won't. Either way, I'm not losing you again." The next evening, Kong Min held another gathering. This one was different, deliberate. Every major player in the syndicate received an invitation. Every ally, every enemy, every person who'd witnessed Kimberly's dismissal the night before. They came because refusing Kong Min's invitation was dangerous. They came expecting another power play, another demonstration of control. What they got was a declaration of war. Kimberly arrived at 8 p.m. wearing a deep burgundy gown that Kong Min had sent to her flat. Elegant, expensive, making a statement. She walked into the estate with her head high. No shrinking, no hiding. Kong Min met her at the entrance, took her hand, and in front of everyone assembled, in front of Madam Chun and Victor Ashworth and every syndicate member who judged her, he pulled her close and kissed her. Not a polite kiss, not a social kiss, acclaiming. When he pulled back, his voice carried through the silent room. "Most of you were here last night. You saw me dismiss Miss Kimberly. You saw me cut her loose. You thought it was because she was a liability, a weakness, a social climber trying to manipulate me." His arm stayed around Kimberly's waist, anchoring her, claiming her. "You were wrong," he continued. "The accusations against her were fabricated by James Harrington, a man with a history of harassment who couldn't accept rejection. The photos were real but deliberately misrepresented. Victor Ashworth has already issued a retraction and apology." Ashworth stood in the crowd, face pale, nodding confirmation. "But more importantly," Kong Min said, his voice dropping to something deadly, "I was wrong. I tried to protect her by pushing her away, by pretending she meant nothing. I thought it would keep her safe." His eyes swept the room. "Instead, I'm going to keep her safe a different way, by making it absolutely clear that she is mine, that anyone who threatens her, threatens me. That touching her is the same as declaring war on this entire syndicate." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Kong Min," Madam Chin started, "you cannot seriously." "I can, and I am." He turned to face the room fully, Kimberly still held against his side. "For 12 years, I've run this operation with pure logic, pure strategy. I've made alliances based on profit, made decisions based on power. And I've been exactly what you expected, cold, calculating, ruthless. But Kimberly made me remember that I'm human, that I'm capable of feeling something other than anger. And I'm not giving that up. Not for you. Not for anyone." The challenge hung in the air. "If any of you have a problem with this," Kong Min continued, "leave now. Walk away. Find another syndicate to work with. But if you stay, you accept this. Kimberly is under my protection. She is not a target. She is not a weakness to exploit. She is off limits. Permanently." Silence stretched. Tense. Dangerous. Then slowly, Madam Chin began to clap. One person. Then another. Then more. Not everyone. Some people left. Some looked furious. But enough people stayed. Enough people accepted. Because ultimately, Kong Min was right. He'd run the syndicate brilliantly for 12 years. And if the price of his continued leadership was accepting that he loved someone, that was a trade most were willing to make. Later that night, after everyone had left, Kong Min and Kimberly stood in the conservatory. The painting, his mother's painting, hung on the wall. Restored. Beautiful. A reminder of what careful attention could save. "You know what happens now, right?" Kimberly said quietly. "Some people will never accept this. They'll see me as a liability forever. Let them." Kong Min's arms wrapped around her from behind. "I meant what I said. Anyone who tries to hurt you answers to me. You're going to have to be terrifying for the rest of your life. I've been terrifying for 12 years. At least now I have something worth being terrifying for." She turned in his arms. "I love you. You know that, right?" "I know." His forehead pressed to hers. "You told me when you kissed me in the rain at 4 a.m. That wasn't telling you. It was." His smile was small, genuine. "You kissed a soaking wet crime boss who'd just driven through a storm to grovel at your door. That's love. Or insanity. With us. Probably both." She laughed. Actually laughed. And Kong Min, the untouchable head of the Seoul London Triad Syndicate, the man known for his ruthless control, smiled like she'd just given him the world. Because in a way she had. 3 months later, at the highest profile syndicate gala of the year, With every ally and enemy watching, Kong Min stood on a stage and introduced Kimberly as his partner. Not girlfriend, not mistress, partner. The word carried weight in their world. It meant permanence, commitment. It meant she wasn't going anywhere. Some people still whispered, still judged, still thought he'd lost his edge. But Kong Min had never been more dangerous, because now he had something to protect, something worth fighting for. And the man who'd spent 12 years feeling nothing had learned how to burn. Kimberly stood beside him, wearing confidence like armor, and whispered, "You know everyone out there is terrified of you now. Good. They think you've gone soft. Let them think that. They'll realize how wrong they are when they test me." She smiled, squeezed his hand. "I love you, you know." "I know." His eyes softened. Just for her. Just for this moment. "I love you too." The man who'd caught her changing had awakened something he never expected. Humanity. Hope. Love. And he'd burn the world down before he let anyone take it away. 2 years later, Kimberly opened her own restoration studio in central London. The sign outside read simply, Kong Restoration and Conservation. His last name. Her expertise. A partnership in every sense of the word. The studio occupied the ground floor of a building Kong Min owned, secure, private, with state-of-the-art equipment and clients who came from all over Europe. Museums. Private collectors. People who wanted the best and didn't ask questions about who funded the operation. Kimberly had her reputation back. Better than back. She was becoming known as one of the finest restoration specialists in the city. But her favorite project still hung in the conservatory at the estate. His mother's painting. The one that started everything. On quiet evenings, Kong Min would find her there, standing in front of that winter landscape. Sometimes he'd just watch her. Other times he'd come up behind her, wrap his arms around her waist, and rest his chin on her shoulder. "Still think it was worth saving?" he'd ask. "Always," she'd whisper back. They both knew she wasn't just talking about the painting. The syndicate had stabilized. Some alliances had fractured when Kong Min chose love over strategy. But new ones had formed. Stronger ones. Because people learned that a man who would burn the world for one person was a man you didn't cross. Kong Min was more dangerous now than he'd ever been. Not less. But he was also happy. Actually, genuinely happy. And late at night, when the estate was quiet and it was just the two of them, he'd pull her close and whisper the same thing he'd said that rainy night at 4 a.m. "I love you." And she'd whisper back, "I know." Because some things, the important things, didn't need to be complicated. Sometimes love was just choosing someone. Every single day. Despite the danger. Despite the world telling you it was impossible. Sometimes love was two damaged people deciding they were worth saving. Just like that painting. So that's their story. The Mafia boss who learned to feel. The woman who taught him how. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you that even the most broken people can find someone worth healing for, leave a comment below. Tell me, do you believe in love that defies logic? In choosing someone even when the world says you shouldn't? Hit that like button if you want more stories like this. Stories about complicated people finding each other in impossible circumstances. And subscribe because trust me, I have so many more stories to tell. Stories about love, power, redemption, and the messy, beautiful ways people save each other. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.